Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. With the Season 4 Reloaded update, we got some rather strange patch notes for Warzone when it comes to the weapon balancing and the meta update. Obviously, they ended up adding in some standard weapon tuning, some basic buffs and nerfs for certain weapons, some of the main meta ones, some other off-meta ones, but they also mentioned that they changed the damage profiles to reflect accuracy a bit more, which they didn't really ever expand upon. So I've been testing a lot of different weapons, whether it be in the firing range, since we can now see that with Warzone health, taking into account what other top tier, top 10 players in the world are using right now when it comes to ranked and the best streamers and whatnot. And we've got a somewhat definitive meta now set up here in Season 4 Reloaded for Warzone, meaning we are here on our tier list today to accurately reflect these changes. Now, to the side here where you'll see me glancing, I've got my handy dandy list of all the changes that were mentioned in the patch notes, and with that, we are going to go through and re-rank the various weapons that were adjusted. So we got to, of course, start first with our MX Guardian shotgun. And this, quite frankly, easily lands in top tier. Now, hold on, we're going to get to absolute meta here in a bit because this will be adjusted. But with the MX Guardian, the reason that this is not in absolute meta is just because any given shotgun, unless it's like one hitting at 45 meters, is very strict with where it can be used. Now, this thing does have some decent range when you put it into semi-auto or burst mode, but still, with how Warzone plays, unless you're in buildings constantly, this is not going to be something that you'd be able to use as a secondary and cover the same lengths and same ranges as an SMG or even a close range rifle, right? So it's limited in range, but where it thrives, it is so dominant. So like if this was playing and building only tier list, this would be absolute meta. Or if this was a small map only list, this would probably be absolute meta. But for Warzone in general, I feel like this is just a top tier option. It's a dominant close range gun. Now, as mentioned, when it comes to the whole damage profile changes, based off of what I've been testing, what I've been using in game, what I've seen other top players using, it doesn't really have seemed to change things all that much. I specifically wanted to focus on the best weapons from last season. So we're talking the Lockman 5.56, the RAL, the SO14, the RAP, so on and so forth. And outside of everything maybe feeling a little bit less powerful than before, and that could just very easily be my aim because the game's performance has been so trash the past couple of days, things didn't really feel all that different. I'm still taking a Lockman 7.62 in the mid-range in full auto over something like, let's say, an EBR or sometimes a TAC M or an STB. We got to bump the TAC V up in a top tier. That was well overdue. But anyways, the patch notes were very weirdly worded, and I don't think they really had like a major impact. I think they were just sort of correcting some issues with like headshot multipliers and whatnot from before. The good weapons from last season still feel very good in a lot of ways. But that said, we also have our individual specific weapon tuning that was made with buffs and nerfs, starting first with the ISO 45, which got a close range damage nerf and a hip fire spread nerf. And to me, this is enough, sort of coinciding with the other changes that were made, to knock the ISO 45 back down into top tier. Now, here's the thing. The SMG category, and I've seen some other creators say this as well, and some other pros and whatnot, say the SMG and like the close range TTK feels pretty slow right now in comparison to what it's been in the past. And I find that to be true. It just means the SMG category is probably the most competitive it's ever been. The ISO is still a phenomenal choice, but the MP5 is too, the WAZNEV is too, the MP7 can hold its own, P90. All the SMGs right now, some of them that are a little bit more underwhelming, like the Mini Bach, are just great choices. And I think it's really healthy that, at least as of right now, there's nothing in this absolute meta category. Now, the WAZNEV did see a close to mid-range damage distance nerf, so basically its damage drop-offs are going to be a little bit more severe now. They were already severe before, so the WAZNEV, I'm going to, for the time being, leave in top tier, but it's something I'm keeping my eye on because outside of like 10 meters, its damage drop-off just plummets, and its TTK really is not all that impressive in the mid-range. So any other potential nerfs to this thing definitely are going to leave the WAZNEV down into competitive, maybe even average, depending on the severity. But it caught a slight nerf. It's not going to be nearly as good as it was before, but it's still a really good choice right now. Now, the Kastov 7.62 actually caught a slight ADS time nerf, so it's going to be a little bit slower there. And I'm at this point, I'm really torn if I want to leave the Kastov 7.62 in top tier or drop it down into the competitive category. And I only say that just because Quite frankly, it is one of the heavier hitting rifles, but its actual realistic TTK and even its accurate TTK is lacking after the health update. And it's something I've sort of been monitoring over the course of season 4 so far with the TTK increase. It's a weapon that really has not been used as much, so I think I am going to drop this down into the more competitive area for now. We'll have to see if that changes in the future, if we see other adjustments made, but it's not really all that aggressive. It's slower in terms of its weight, its ADS time, its recoil is a lot more noticeable, and its TTK now is not something that just stands out a ton like it has in the past. Now the 74U got a minor nerf for Warzone. They really focused on this in multiplayer more, but it got a hip spread nerf, so its hip fire is not going to be as good. I don't really ever find myself hip firing all that much. We also saw some slight shotgun changes here. The Bryson 890 got an ADS movement buff, so I mean that's solid, but it's still not a very good shotgun, especially here in Warzone. Also, when the MX Guardian exists, there's not really much of a reason to be using anything that's not this or maybe the KV broadside in certain instances. The Expedite 12 got an ADS buff and a hipfire buff, which is all right, but again, it's not a crazy broken shotgun, so those really aren't going to be changing. They're staying in average because quite frankly, that's what they are. They're just kind of And by the way, as we were breaking down all the meta changes and weapon changes for this update, if you guys are new here, you want to stay up to date with all things going on in COD, be sure to hit that subscribe button, join us on the road to 1 million subs, and if you enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like on it as well. Also, shout out to my friends over at Gamer Advantage. You might have heard by now, but yes, I do have my very own Gamer Advantage bundle. This comes in 2 different forms. You can get the full-on glasses bundle, which comes with a pair of Inferno frames that have a tiger claw sort of etched into the lens. It's sort of like a customizable thing there. Then it also comes with the full-on accessory kit, which includes a custom WhosImmortal carrying cloth. It has a cleaning cloth with my logo on it and a sticker as well. Or if you've already got a pair of Gamer Advantage frames, you can just simply pick up the accessory kit by itself, which is obviously much cheaper since you're not going for the full-on glasses bundle. If you want to pick up either or of those, throw in code Immortal at checkout. It'll get you an added discount. Link for that will be down in the description below. Now, next up, the Tempest Torrent ended up getting an ADS nerf, which is a slight nerf there, but it is something that I feel like is somewhat impactful. Also, just monitoring this one as well, because this is a weapon that sort of has been slept on in the past. I think this is one I want to drop down more into competitive as well, just because it's more niche, right, than some of these other options that we have in the top tier area. And even with the other battle rifles and marksman rifles that it's similar to, it's one that really thrives in the close to mid-range, but that's also a meta right now that's really dominated by some weapons like the Razorback or the Chimera or the 74U. Now, the EBR also got a couple of nerfs here. They nerfed the ADS movement speed, and then they also nerfed the hipfire strafe. Those are not significant nerfs though. The reason the EBR is competitive is because its damage is really, really good. The downside is that it takes sniper ammo, so you're super limited, but for those who are very accurate, the EBR is still going to be a competitive weapon, and those changes I don't feel like are going to be super noticeable. This is a bit of a fun one, but the MK2 actually got some buffs. It's got an ADS buff and a movement buff, so it's just better at being that sort of quick scope weapon that you run around and are just super aggressive with. Unfortunately, here in Warzone, it just takes too many shots to actually kill, and if you miss one, you're probably going to be in the gulag or in the spectating screen, right? It's just too high risk, low reward to be anything decent, but for those who can do well with it, I applaud you because it is a much higher skill weapon, and now it's going to be more fun to use that if that's something you're interested in. And then lastly, we got an update to the SAB 50. This got a movement buff, so it's a little bit faster as well, but again, kind of the same deal here. It's not really anything to write home about. But when we look at the overall meta here, I mean, the biggest standout to me is that I can't say definitively that there is a gun that absolutely is meta right now. Now, yes, the SO14, which where is that, by the way? This is obviously a bit outdated because we haven't looked at this list in some time. Obviously, this is in top tier, but there's no weapon here that I can say is clearly better than the other options. Now, yes, the SO14 is phenomenal. The RAL is phenomenal. The RAP is phenomenal. ISO is good. Lockman's good. Razorback's good. But would I 10 times out of 10 times take the SO14 over attack or over a Razorback or over this or that? Not necessarily. So I can't feel like, okay, you can say this is absolute meta or this is absolute meta. This is really healthy. This is really diverse and really strong and promotes using a handful of different weapons. Anything in top tier here, you can pair with one another and get away with using it. It's going to be super competitive. A lot of the competitive category as well. Things like the STB, borderline top tier for sure. Kastov 762 is still up there. RPK. You've got options on options on options here, which is really nice to see, really refreshing to see. That said, I still think some weapons stand out a bit more than others, and we'll see this evolve over the coming days and weeks as we get more hands-on time with this update. But as of right now, this is how the overall meta stands. In the coming days, probably tomorrow, we're going to be breaking down the best loadouts for some of these top tier and best weapons in the game. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you are subscribed with those noties turned on. And if you enjoyed this video or if you found it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.